Welcome to the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. Our mission is to help executives become better cyber risk managers. We are your hosts. I'm Kip Boyle, CEO of Cyber Risk Opportunities.
And I'm Jake Bernstein, Cybersecurity Counsel at the law firm of Newman DuWors.
And this is the show where we help you become a better cyber risk manager.
The show is sponsored by Cyber Risk Opportunities and Newman DuWors LLP. If you have questions about your cybersecurity related legal responsibilities,
and if you want to manage your cyber risks just as thoughtfully as you manage risks in other areas of your business, such as sales, accounts receivable, and order fulfillment, then you should become a member of our Cyber Risk Managed program, which you can do for a fraction of the cost of hiring a single cybersecurity expert. You can find out more by visiting us at cyberriskopportunities.com and newmanlaw.com.
So, Kip, what will we be talking about today?
And today we're going to talk about why every company needs good cyber risk management.
Okay, every company. So, Kip, let's just go ahead and start. Why do our listeners need cyber risk management for their companies?
Okay, I thought you'd never ask. In today's economy, you need any organization, any company is going to need computer systems just about as much as they need customers to serve and something to sell them. And the whole idea of cyber risk these days is if you could somehow disconnect from the internet and still stay in business, that would be the best possible way of managing all these cyber risks. But it's just we've adopted the internet so thoroughly and so completely that that's just not really a possibility anymore.
Well, and I would say that the internet is the business enabler for a lot of companies these days. I mean, you think about, market leaders and how much Amazon has disrupted the entire retail industry, the slow decline of just the old mall. I mean, it's, disconnecting might seem like the easy solution to, for a business, but it's just not realistic. So given that, what are some examples of where the technology kind of backfires and hurts you?
Right. So I'm thinking of a couple of examples right now, and they're very high profile examples. So if you want to learn more, if listeners want to learn more, this should be a very easy thing to just Google some of this. So last summer, 2017, there was a computer worm called NotPetya, and it swept across Europe for quite some time. And there were two logistics companies that were particularly affected by this. And I think that the story about how they were affected is instructive. So the first one was called TNT, which is a subsidiary of FedEx. And so they do small package delivery, ground-based small package delivery. They're kind of like, FedEx in the United States and elsewhere, or UPS. And the second company that was really affected badly by NotPetya was Maersk, and they're a container shipping company. And so that's ocean-going shipments, right? And in both cases, those companies got hit so hard with NotPetya that they actually lost control of all the packages, or practically all the packages and containers in their custody. And when I say lost control, what it really comes down to these days is, and this kind of speaks to the nature of the internet, but if you're a logistics company and you can't access the data about the shipments that are in your possession, if you can't move that data, then you can't move the goods. They'll just sit in the shipping yards or in the warehouses, and that's pretty much the end of your business day. And as you can imagine, it's a cardinal sin to not be able to move freight, right?
Oh yeah. Well, if you're a freight company that can't move freight, you're a company that's losing a lot of money every second.
Right, and the great irony of it is that you can move the freight, you just don't know which ship to load it on or which truck to put it on. You have no idea where it's supposed to go. So you have possession of all these boxes and containers, but you have no idea what to do with them.
And to be fair, freight handling has always been a fairly data-intensive business. It's just that now that it's all computerized, and why wouldn't it be, if those computers don't work, you're unable to do much.
Well, and even if you could somehow crack the computers open and look at all the files in there, you would never have enough manpower to process all that stuff, right? It's so
Exactly.
highly automated now that the idea that you're going to fall back to a manual procedure is just out of reach. It's just we've scaled it so much that that we just can't take it back and actually process it
No, not at
anymore.
all.
No. And so as a result of this, Maersk, for example, lost over $500 million in expected profits. Shipyards all over the world were idled. And in some cases, ships couldn't even dock because there was no computer control available to tell them which cranes were going to remove containers from the vessel and which containers needed to be placed upon them. So, I mean, just the impact of idling container ships around the world
Yeah,
is really
that's
staggering.
devastating, really.
Yeah, and the FedEx subsidiary TNT, the packages just piled up in the warehouses, and whenever I've sent a small package or if I'm expecting to get one, an Amazon delivery or something like that, I like to be able to go and do tracking. Right, where is the thing? When's it going to show up? None of that was working, so customers had no idea. They couldn't do self-service and figure out where their packages were when they were going to be showing up. And so, if you think about it, a lot of not only did FedEx lose a lot of money, but the people who count on the small businesses just abandoned them in droves and
Yep.
went over to another small package delivery company that wasn't nearly as heavily affected by NotPetya, called DHL, and they're a subsidiary of the German post office. And so it's really interesting if you go into the public records and you see FedEx disclosing these financial hits to their company. At the same time, you can go over to DHL and you can actually look and see how their volumes were trending up. And DHL didn't do anything special other than they just stayed in business. And what a marvelous thing to do, right?
Yeah, so were they lucky, or do you think they had just like greatly superior cyber risk management?
I wish I knew the actual answer, and I hope that it gets revealed at some point. But I don't know that it matters very much, because if you're listening to this podcast and you're trying to do a better job of managing your cyber risks, I would suggest taking the maybe I'll get lucky path is probably not the way to go. I would
Definitely not the way to go.
no. So what you want to do is think about DHL, and you want to think about how can I be the DHL, when the time comes? How can I still be standing and staying in business when my competitors are flat on their back?
Yep.
Or maybe I can just get up faster than they can, right? I mean,
Yep.
this is competitive advantage going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just fall to your knees and then stand back up, that's better than getting knocked flat on your back and staying there for a while.
Exactly. So let me tell you about this other story I'm thinking
Yeah, I was
about.
going to say, what's the other story? And does this one have a happy ending or no?
This one has a really horrible ending
Oh
because
dear.
at least Maersk and FedEx are still in business, right? They got hit pretty hard, and it's going to sting for a while, but they're still in business. In another example, very high profile, there was a law firm in Panama City, Panama, called Mossack Fonseca, and you and I have talked about Mossack Fonseca so much. Well, that's the law firm that gave us what we affectionately call the Panama Papers now.
Panama Papers, yeah.
The Panama Papers, and of course that was widely reported in the press. I mean, there were thousands of stories about what was discovered by digging through the Panama Papers. 2.6 terabytes of data that was exfiltrated from the law firm over a period of 18 months.
And just
And
remind us, when was that exfiltration and when was it all publicized?
well, it all happened. The publication started to happen in early 2016, but the exfiltration of the data actually started 18 months prior to that. And so, for 18 months, some outsider was pulling data out of the law firm over their internet connection, and nobody at the law firm had any idea that this was going on. They were completely oblivious to the fact that they had been attacked, hacked, and that their files were being removed on a regular basis. So And of course, the consequences, as we all know, were very serious to the people who use the services of Mossack Fonseca. What's a little
Clients.
less, yeah, the clients. What's a little less well understood is that the law firm itself was fined and laid off staff, and ultimately, earlier this year, they went bankrupt and they're not in business anymore.
So let's say midway through 2018, we'll just say it was started publication in April of 2016. So 2 years after publication, this law firm, which it wasn't a 100-year law firm, but it was still it'd been around for a while.
1977.
1977 is gone,
Yep.
obliterated,
Completely blown up.
completely blown up. That's pretty striking.
Yeah, and it took a couple of years, as you pointed out, for them to do that. But these days, what we see is you either go out of business very, very quickly due to a cyber attack. I'm thinking of a company called Code Spaces, where in less than 12 hours they were bankrupted. There was another law firm called Puckett and Farage. And they were out of business in less than a week. So sometimes it's a very fast hit and a flame out, and other times it's what I would call a long, slow slide into oblivion, which is what happened with Mossack Fonseca. So what I think about is, even though that law firm was engaged in, I think we can all agree, unethical and in certain cases probably illegal activities, maybe not in their jurisdiction, but in the jurisdictions of their clients. It was a big law firm. They had a lot of people that worked for them, and now there's a lot of people out of work, and now they can't provide for their families. And so, I mean, the social impact of this on the law firm side is pretty big. So, nobody won.
Nobody did win. Well, other than the person who perhaps was trying to get them out of business, they did succeed, which is interesting to note. So, what is are there any estimates about what the cost of this is all going to be over the next 5 years?
Yeah, there's some. So if you roll up like all the cyber risk together, and you think about the failures that are going to happen, or that we think is going to happen, it's the graph is kind of one of these up and to the right kind of things, which typically people want to see up and to the right, but this is one of those where no, you don't really want to see that. So in 2015, the total cost of all cyber failures around the world was about $500 billion, which is an enormous number, $500 billion. And in 2021, so we're looking forward just like 3 years, that number is going to rise from 500 billion to 6 trillion. And it'll, as far as we know, it's going to continue to climb. So it's a staggering number. I've never seen 1 trillion of anything, let alone 6 trillion of something.
Exactly, very much so.
It's just crazy. And I think our listeners are right to wonder, like, what the heck's going on here, right? Why is this happening? And you and I have talked about it. There's essentially a big shift happening, right? You do a good job of explaining this.
The situation is that it's not possible for the bad guys to, let me rephrase that. The bad guys have to be right one time. The good guys have to be right all the time.
Right.
And if you look at the numbers, they're staggering, because these attacks are automated, as we mentioned, and the scope of attacks. You think about just one of the major credit card companies. They just stated that to date in 2018, they've already seen 20 million cyber attacks on their systems and servers.
Yeah,
now,
it's so inexpensive to attack.
It basically costs nothing to launch the attack. You think about, think of the impact that 20 million even unsuccessful bank robberies would have on society. I mean, it would be like a war zone, right? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even sure. I don't even think there's been 200,000 bank robberies in the history of the world, let alone 20
Yeah.
million in 6
Yeah.
months.
Only in a
So,
digital domain could you have 20 million attacks.
yeah, and it's not slowing down. So, you know, the cyberspace, it doesn't conform to our pre-existing legal and physical defense mechanisms. We can't just go and arrest bad guys who are in a country where what they're doing, particularly as long as they do it to us, is legal. Sometimes even encouraged.
Right.
Sometimes not even encouraged, but directly controlled by state actors.
Yep.
So, you know, the situation is just not going to change for the better. You are, they always say, police are responders, they react. They can come investigate and clean up a crime, but if you want to stay safe all the time, you got to hire your own bodyguard, right? That's what you
Mm-hmm.
see people do. You got to hire your own physical security.
Yep.
So, likewise, if you want to stay safe in the cyber realm, you need to take matters into your own hands and really work on your own cyber risk.
Yeah, I think about I have this movie that plays in my head when I explain this to people, and it kind of looks like there's an executive sitting at their desk and they're enjoying all of the internet infrastructure and the electricity and the air conditioned workspace and all right. So we've got this highly evolved modern workplace. And environment, but once you get on the internet, it's almost like you're living in a log cabin again, out on the frontier, where there's no police protection, no fire protection. The cavalry lives in a wooden fort 2 days away from you by horse. And so if anybody comes around to mess with you on your homestead, you're on your own. So hopefully you know how to load your gun. You've got plenty of bullets, and you can defend yourself long enough to keep from losing your place. And so it's almost like this sort of Hollywood transformation, in a moment, from this, very modern situation to a pioneer situation, and anyway, so, but I think that's what people have to realize is that on the internet, we're all pioneers, and all the infrastructures and protections and governance that we're accustomed to, it just simply doesn't exist right now.
No, I mean, it's like the Wild West, right? There's no law enforcement is few and far between, and they have to get lucky to do anything impactful.
Right. Well, and so why is this happening? Well, so as you pointed out, on the one side, you've got this amazing technology that is now in the hands of cyber criminals, and they're using it to attack at astounding rates, while at the same time taking advantage of these antiquated governance systems that depend on physical jurisdictions and so forth. And so it actually reminds me of a time in the past when another similar situation came up, which is in the 1930s and 1920s in rural America, you had gangsters in very fast cars with handheld machine guns who would rob a bank branch and then quickly drive to the state line where they would be free from pursuit and where there was no state police waiting to apprehend them on the other side of the border, because the police in the town that they had just robbed had super slow cars. They had no radios. They were they had these revolvers that were probably army surplus and not working very well. And a lot of people don't realize this, but it took until about the mid 90s. I did the research. It took about until 1995 to get to the point where robbing a bank branch just wasn't feasible anymore. There were so many great protections, silent alarms, die packs, bulletproof glass, right? The FBI and the banks worked with each other to figure out how to neutralize this threat. But it took, it took it took decades to
It
figure
did.
this out. And so I don't know why we should think that it's going to take anything less than decades to sort out the situation we find ourselves in now.
Yeah, I agree. It will be a very long time, and it will require new modes of operation and thinking, and in the meantime, I think the takeaway here is you can't rely on the government or police or law enforcement of any kind to keep you safe.
Yeah.
You need to you need to secure your home, you need to secure your business, and in the cyber realm, it's even more true than ever before.
And even the defenses that we have are not guaranteed. Intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems. I mean, that you can spend a ton of money on the latest state of the art in technological defenses, and they're still not. Not going to be foolproof by any stretch of the imagination. When Target, the retailer, lost control of all those credit cards, and they went back and did the digital forensics, they found that the attack was in fact detected by their systems. The problem was is that the alarms or the alerts to the attack were never seen by a human, or weren't processed in a way for the for the controllers to understand that that what was happening was this massive theft in progress. So you've got technological issues that are going to keep you from preventing bad stuff from happening.
Well, and there's your slow cars and lack of radios, right?
Yep.
I mean, we might have this technology, but despite the name, they're not necessarily very good at detecting or preventing intrusions.
No.
But they are a start, and I think that you're going to see these tools evolve over time into something that is eventually useful. Eventually,
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
fair to say we will get to a point where you've got silent alarms and ink bombs and things like that. But one, we're not going to get there without a lot of struggle.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff is kind of forged in conflict, and that's what's happening here.
Yep.
So before we end, why don't you tell us who is the modern day gangster? I mean, we don't have Al Capone running around with his Tommy gun.
Yeah.
But so who do we have?
Yeah. Well, I think of it as if Tony Soprano learned how to use the internet. Let's say Tony Soprano and Jeff Bezos somehow were able to, morph into a single criminal. That's really what we've got here these days. And I really get frustrated with Hollywood and the newspapers, because they would have us think that the adversary that's expected to cause $6 trillion worth of damage is some kid wearing a hoodie in the basement of his mom's house, drinking Mountain Dews, eating Cheetos, and having nothing better to do than to troll around on the internet. And nothing could be further from the truth. So and a great example of this is a guy named Bogachev, and one of his online identities is Lucky 12345. And if you go out to the FBI.gov website, you'll see his wanted poster up there. He's got a reward on his head right now for $3 million for his arrest, his apprehension. He lives in Russia, and as far as we can tell, he's protected by the Russian government, the foreign intelligence services. And so why are we so interested in Bogachev? He's stolen over $100 million from U.S. banks using technology. The guy, as far as we know, has never set foot in the United States during that crime spree, which he continues to aim towards us. But the problem is he's so well protected that as long as he never leaves the physical spaces where Russia's not going to give him up to the United States, there's no way to know if he'll ever face any kind of trial for what he's done.
No, I mean, Russia's not. Yeah, I mean, you need international cooperation, and when you have international, belligerent states, or at least uncooperative ones, your options are very limited.
Very limited. I mean, this has gone from a criminal investigation to an international incident.
Yep.
Right? I mean, this is war by other means. The United States, Russia, and China have a lot of tension between the three of them, and a lot of weapons pointing at each other. But instead of using these so-called, kinetic weapons, actually, igniting bombs and blowing stuff up, we're lobbing digital weapons at each other right now. There's a whole battle.
Cyber war. The cyber war is being fought.
The cyber wars are going on right now, and everybody who's connected to the internet is really a foot soldier as these cyber wars are unfolding around us. And by the way, the NotPetya worm virus that we talked about in the beginning of the episode, that was actually aimed at, that was Russia aiming a cyber weapon at the Ukraine. It just got out of control, and Maersk and FedEx were, that was collateral damage. They weren't actually even the targets. So we live in a world where you don't even leave your office and you find that you're in a crossfire, in a hail of digital bullets, and you get hurt. And that's the world we live in now. So I think it's important for listeners, for executives, to understand, what's really going on, and how this is going to continue to unfold. And you're going to need to do more than just think that you can prevent bad stuff from happening. You're going to need insurance. You're going to need response capabilities, public relations strategies, because it's inevitable that we're all going to get hacked sooner or later. But you definitely don't want to look like Equifax trying to respond to something really horrible that's happened to your customers.
Agreed.
So anyway, hey, everybody, thanks for joining us today on the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. And, we talked about why everybody needs cyber risk management. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today on the Cyber Risk Management Podcast.
Remember that cyber risk management is a team sport and needs to incorporate management, your legal department, HR, and IT for full effectiveness.
And management's goal should be to create an environment where practicing good cyber hygiene is supported and encouraged by every employee. So if you want to manage your cyber risks and ensure that your company enjoys the benefits of good cyber hygiene, then please contact us and consider becoming a member of our Cyber Risk Managed program.
You can find out more by visiting us at cyberriskopportunities.com and newmanlaw.com. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.